Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Nitronics here, and I've taken the liberty of getting like a handful of guns from this game that I potentially think could be the best in the game. So I have two guns here that are testable via accuracy and looking at damage charts, things like that. And then I have a few that are more down to user, which I can't really test, but I'll get into that after these first two. So I'm going to be comparing the ACR and the TAR. Now these guns are actually fairly comparable because they have a very similar rate of fire, whereas the ACR is 737 rounds per minute versus the TAR 21's 725 rounds per minute. The biggest difference is we all know the ACR is incredibly accurate, more so than the TAR for sure, but the TAR 21 has more damage. So at close range with stopping power, the TAR 21 can 2-shot kill and 3-shot from far away, whereas the ACR is 3 shots up close and 4 far away with stopping power. So what I've done here is put a holographic silencer on the TAR 21 because I think that'll give it the best shot at closing the gap in accuracy. But I've also put them both on the ACR just to keep it consistent. And what I'm going to do here is just dump a mag into one of these squares and check the bullet spreads of both guns. So let's dump one here. Okay, and as you'd expect, a very nice tight bullet spread, not a single one off target. So now I need to go ahead and put another insertion here and swap to the TAR 21. Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same for this, and we'll put it in this square here. Okay, you can already tell that had way more recoil. Okay, it was kind of like a shotgun spread here. I would say most of them are still on target, but not even close to being as good as the ACR. I'm going to do one more clip of the TAR because the ACR has the blessing of being super consistent, whereas the TAR 21, you're going to get a different spread just about every time you do this. So I'm going to do it on this side of the ACR just to save room. Okay. And that is a much better spread than the first time. You get a lot tighter bullets in here. Obviously, we still have a bunch of outliers up here, but a lot more on target than the first time. So you kind of have that wild card of the TAR 21. So that being said, I would have to I can't really give an edge to either because the TAR 21 has the fastest DPS in the game with its damage and rate of fire, but the ACR is just so damn consistent. So if you want my opinion, I would say they are equal, but it really just map dependent. So if we take a map like this with lots of close quarters engages, you know, there's that building over there that everyone likes to circle jerk in, I would take the TAR 21. But on maps like Estate, Wasteland, Quarry, things like that, I think the ACR is the go-to gun for that. So I would tie these guns up and say that, you know, ACR for long maps and TAR 21 for short maps. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the other guns that have some non-testable qualities, but I still think have the potential to be the best. So let's get into that. The first one being right here, the M16. So what a lot of people don't know is that the M16 actually has a higher fire rate than the FAMAS, sorry. And the reason for that is, yes, the FAMAS shoots the 3 bullets out faster, but the delay between bursts is lower on the M16, therefore giving it an overall higher fire rate. Also, the M16 is more accurate than the FAMAS. So I'm going to do, you know, the same test here. We're going to put it all in this square right here. And I'm just firing it as fast as it'll let me. Okay, and as you'd expect, a very nice tight spread, not quite as tight as the ACR, but I'm going to dump the entire mag of an M16 into somebody, you know, sometimes you might have to, but I would argue that this is the best gun for long range. You know, there's a guy way down there, one burst, he's dead. It functions very similar to the COD 4 M16. Now, so in that regard, I would prefer the M16 over the ACR in a long range battle. However, I would not prefer it in a close range one. Also, the M16 is very one-dimensional. You have to have stopping power, you have to have a holographic sight, whereas the ACR, you can run whatever you want, basically. So, it's, you know, it comes down to preference at that point, and also map choice. So, you know, on Wasteland, something like that, I would say M16. On something where you might get long and close range engagements, maybe Karachi, ACR. Really depends on preference and map and just the scenario you're in. So I'm going to move on to the next untestable gun here, which is the FAL. Due to the semi-auto nature of it, you really can't test how good this is because it comes down to the user. So one strange quirk about the FAL that only a couple other guns have, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but the holographic sight actually adds damage to this gun. And that means that at close range with stopping power and a holo, this gun can one-shot headshot. And it's also a two-shot kill at any range. Doesn't matter. He's way down there, it's a two-shot. If he's right in front of my face, it's a two-shot. Does not matter. So that's a quality that no other gun has. It's unique to the FAL. Now the problem is it's semi-automatic, so that means some people are going to be really good with this. It rewards good players, but if you're trash with a semi-auto, you know, whether that's because you don't have a good trigger finger or just the way it recoils doesn't suit you, then, you know, it's not going to be the best for you. Also, up close, obviously a semi-auto isn't ideal. So I'm going to give it an accuracy test anyways, even though it's as accurate as you want it to be, but it also depends on how fast you shoot it. So I'm going to give it just a brisk rate of fire into the wall. So let's give it a go. Okay, now over my days of testing, I've gotten some inconsistency from the FAL, that being it either kicks like this straight to the moon, or it kicks closer to an M16. Now, that probably is because of the way I fire it is going to be slightly different every single time. So I'll do it again right here. Now, as you can see, that one was a lot different than this one. There's more bullets on target. It's more of a normal gun spread rather than a straight up and down line. And I think that's just down to me firing it slightly slower, slightly faster. So I think the FAL has the potential to be the best gun in certain scenarios, or perhaps better than the M16. I think the FAL and the M16 are very similar, and it just depends on whether you can handle a semi-automatic. If you're good with a semi-auto, having two-shot at any range or one-shot headshot is huge. But if you're not good with it, M16 is a happy in-between the ACR, M16, FAL. You know, I'd say it goes in that order as far as how hard they are to use. So I do have one final gun on this list, which may be a little bit of a surprise to you, and that is the Scar H. Now the Scar H has the same damage as the TAR 21, but a lot less rate of fire, about 550 rounds per minute, but it is more accurate, and I think this is perhaps the most versatile assault rifle. Now, what I mean by that is you can run absolutely anything on the Scar H and you'll be happy. This is my go-to gun. If I want to run cold-blooded silencer and be totally invisible, this is the gun I want to do it on, because something like the ACR doesn't have the damage to allow me to not take stopping power and to have a silencer, but the Scar has the damage to do so, and it also has good accuracy. Now, you might say it needs extended mags. Maybe it does have a short mag, So extended mags is definitely great, but that's the beauty of it. You have the option. You want to run extended mags, you can. So I'm going to give this a spray right into this square here. Okay, so we have just a vertical and then it jumped to the left here, which is a lot tighter of a spread than the tar. As you can see, we get this sort of more of a shotgun spread. The Scar also is a little bit inconsistent with its spread, whereas sometimes I'll get a pinpoint, you know, almost looking like an ACR, and sometimes I'll get something like this, but this is probably as bad as the accuracy will get for you using a Scar. So I think versatility is something I can't physically test, but something to keep in mind, that this gun can run absolutely any perk or any attachment and the results will be fine, and so you can really mold this gun to your playstyle. So I think those, what are that, 5 guns that I've tested here, I think any of those 5 are a good choice. Now, I think some of you are going to mention the UMP, and I think the UMP does everything the TAR does, but just slightly worse, because the TAR has a higher fire rate, but you could argue the UMP does have mobility, but I don't think it's as accurate, at least from a range, because it is a submachine gun. So maybe in certain places where you're really doing a lot of running, the UMP is a better option, but I think overall the TAR's a better gun because of its DPS accuracy. It's just, an assault rifle is going to have the advantage over the submachine gun 9 times out of 10. You just get that mobility of the submachine gun. So that's my honorable mention for this, is the UMP. But otherwise, these 5 guns, ACR, TAR, M16, FAL, or SCAR. So one of those 5 guns takes the crown depending on the type of player you are. So let me know in the comments what you think is the best, if I, you know, maybe overlooked something, or tell me which of these 5 you think is best. So